So I got some quick points to make. Some cool things in case some fans don't realize, but how is it that this Washington Commanders team goes from the second pick in the draft 12 months ago to now being in a divisional playoff game after beating Tampa Bay? Was it really because they just got lucky and picked Jaden Daniels at number 2?
Yes.
Well, let me share a couple of cool things with you guys. It isn't. Because whenever a team has success, it always starts at the top. And going on with the topic of just like all these teams have been trying to interview our coordinators, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, they're going down to our assistant coaches. They're getting interviews as OCs and DCs. Well, it's actually been happening to the Lions already for a few seasons without many noticing. So if we go, or if you're on with us on YouTube, I'm sharing my screen on the Washington Commanders website. And if you're listening, tune in with us on YouTube. We put on a great show here for you guys to watch. But take a look at who the assistant general manager, the assistant GM of the Washington Commanders team is. It's Lance Newmark. Now, if you guys recall, Lance Newmark, he was a senior advisor to Brad Holmes the last 3 drafts. He was the last person that Lance Newmark drafted. He was solely responsible for Kirby Joseph, our all-pro safety. So if you go back and watch the Inside the Den videos, the draft night, Lance is on Brad Holmes' left side advising throughout the whole draft, and they celebrate with him when they get Kirby Joseph on that last draft. So what happens? He gets picked off. Washington can see his brilliance, and he becomes the assistant GM over in Washington. Next guy on this list, Brandon Sosna. He was the guy responsible at USC for bringing who's their coach right now? Who's a big name at USC? I forget it right now. If you guys remember, who's the head coach at USC? But it took a lot. What was that?
Is it Lane Kiffin? I don't know.
Yes. Is it
Cliff Kingsbury?
No.
No. Cliff is there at Washington. Look it up for me, Ivan, real quick on Google. Who's the head coach at USC?
Now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hold on.
Football. So Brandon Sosna made a deal to get that guy there.
Lincoln Riley,
thank you. Yeah, he gets Lincoln Riley over to USC. The Lions a couple seasons ago, they're like, this guy's brilliant. Let's bring him in. Brandon Sosna helps with the Jared Goff contract. He helps set up our cap the last few years. And Washington's like, we like what you're doing. Let's bring that success over here to Washington. He gets picked. And I'm sure there's a couple other guys, but they took like 3 or 4 guys from us.
Yeah.
That nobody talked about on the main media. That it was just like in the background, it was happening. I'm like, we're losing really good guys. They're all going to Washington. And then if we look at their coaching tree, do you guys recognize this assistant quarterbacks coach?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Heck yeah, maybe our quarterback.
David Blau, bro. David Blau is an assistant quarterbacks coach now for Washington. So David Blau knows Ben Johnson's scheme since day one. Since the moment Ben Johnson was just a passing game coordinator. So there's a lot of Detroit Lions ties with the new regime, with this Washington team, that it's sneakily gone under the radar that nobody's really talked about. And that has a lot to do with their success. They took a lot of our front office guys to help them draft. So then if you look at this year's draft for Washington, they had a good draft. Not only Jaden Daniels, but you look down the list. I mean, Mikey Sanders still went in like the 3rd round, and he's their corner. That's been doing awesome this year. So Washington's been pretty sneaky at taking some of our guys the last couple of years. And that's the one thing that does make me a tiny bit nervous is this guy right here, David Blau. You know, hopefully, I'm sure these coaches change their coaching calls, you know, their secret calls that they do there on the line every year. But I'm hoping that we've done enough changes that David Blau doesn't know too much of what we're doing on offense. Because as a quarterback, he's going to know the complete offense.
Sometimes by how they're lined up too. Just looking at it, like, okay, you're either going to have this or this on this setup, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So if it's a close game, I'm blaming David Blau why it's so close. But I still feel confident.
If I see David Blau down in Detroit, no questions asked. And well, I'm gonna get that too.
So I want to bring up I think they have Anthony Lynn, don't they? Because I saw something recently on Twitter that
they do.
They do?
Yep.
Yeah. That's
Sorry, I didn't put them. I was going to scroll down too, and I stopped sharing my screen. They do.
They do have Anthony Lynn. Yeah.
Yep. Run game coordinator.
He knows pretty well what Dan wants. Yeah. So he's worked with him closely.
This is what I'm
telling you, dude. They took a lot of our Lions people.
Well, here's my question to you, bro. All that was great and really good intel. However, if they took all of those assistant coaches, all the assistant GMs, all that stuff, they wanted Ben Johnson. They were going to fly out here to see Ben Johnson. So they wanted to have their cake and eat it too. They wanted the whole thing. But guess what? When they came down here, Ben Johnson had one thing to say. No, bro.
Nope.
I'm staying here. So we got him. And yes, Adrian, he knows that David Blau's over there. And so he's going to change the language. And we ain't worried about it.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to bring up
great insight.
I think this was the first year of the new ownership, right? As well.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring up talking about like infrastructure and organizations. Like seeing the success of Washington, but also like Detroit, like everything from top down really matters. Ever since, Martha took over, like she wanted to build something different. She was looking for different advisors, Chris Spielman, and there was like a report he might be interviewing for GM somewhere else. So like that really matters too. No, exactly. So it's a point like having great infrastructure from the top bottom really matters to like who you have. Because like here's the best example. Like what annoys me so much in seeing from different teams is saying, oh, this coach is really bad, when I've seen it very inconsistently from the Raiders, from the Cowboys, from the Bears, always saying it's the coach. No, it is not. It's your GM, but also your ownership. Like it's kind of
your front office.
For your front office, and like they do not see that. So like the Bears they have a great team, but first get rid of the GM. Ryan Poles is not actually a good GM. Like he has the money because he's gotten these players from cap space, but like it's not going to get you anywhere. Like let's see what happened this year. They're 4-13, 4-12. Like I knew that Caleb wasn't going into a good situation, and it was so funny that it was praised this year that he wasn't the best situation possible. No, he was not at all. And like going to the Cowboys, like now they have an opening, but it's still going to be the same. Like Jerry's going to still control that.
Oh yeah, he controls the team.
He's going to still control that team. Like there's no difference.
Yeah.
So like we are living in as Lions team, we definitely are living in like what are the good old days. So hopefully, and I feel like thanks to Brad, we will have this division consistently throughout the years. Like thanks to him, we'll have it, sustained. Hopefully he doesn't go, it's very sad, but kind of pointing that out, like, same thing for the Raiders. Like you see inconsistent every year. You got rid of coaches, but the ownership, like that guy with the ugly hair. So it's, I forgot his name, but it's like, he's just not making the right decisions. So,
then bringing in Chris Spielman, that's when I was like, this is different.
And Davis.
Shout out to Mark Davis's barber.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I mean, haven't people been saying about the Lions, and we were all like, "No, it's coach, it's coach, coach." Well, as soon as Martha gives it to Sheila, look what's happened.
Sheila's like, "Let's do this the right way."
And of course, it's still the Ford family, but it's a different vision. It's a whole different, a whole different generation. And so, she gets. You just said it.
And she was that was like the first time I ever seen a Ford emotional about this rebuild. She's like, I know everybody wants it overnight. Just be patient. It's going to take time.
Yeah.
She did it the right way, brought in the right people.
Yeah,
Spielman was
deserves
huge,
so much
man.
credit, man.
Yeah,
I
and
really
if
do
you-
not want to see him go.
if you really think about it, it's like once the like ownership and GM coach are like really intertwined and like trust each other, that's perfect because like Sheila could have like fired Dan when they were like 1-6.
Oh, I know.
They could have done that compared to the Raiders firing every year. They're not trusting their coach. So like that's just the situation. That's my rant. But like I'm really happy when we went through like the Patricia era to really experience like what really
We wouldn't be here without that.